So sorry, little technical hitch. Little technical hitch as per usual to get going just when I had everything prepped, and then the last thing was I couldn't connect phones. So that was typical. So I'm just going to check all my cameras are okay now and check that it's all going live. So bear with me for 1 minute and let's just see if we are, fingers crossed, going live. Where are we? Okay, good. Okay. Oh gosh, right. It's so I prepped, I had everything ready, and it's just typical at last minute then, just things don't connect. So we're off now, we're good. So welcome to Beyond the Blocks episode 2. This is a series of dressmaking videos by myself, Helen Rhiannon. I'm a designer, I'm a teacher, I'm an author, and you probably know me best as the author of Dressmaking the Easy Guide, which is this little book up here. Okay, so this book is 1.5 years old and it is still selling very, very strong because the whole ethos of the book is about being able to allow the normal person, not someone who's got lots of education in dressmaking or you know, practice in that, but the normal person to be able to pick up a book, be able to measure themselves, be able to make a block to fit their own unique body, and then be able to actually adapt those blocks into your own personal wardrobe. The book caters for sizes 6 to 44, which is UK sizing, even though the size chart in the book is actually totally bespoke. So there is no reference to sizing in the book. It's all about measurements. So it doesn't matter whether you're in the UK, EU, rest of the world, anywhere, this book will cater for you and your size. So what we're going to be doing today is demonstrating how to actually take your blocks further. Those of you that might have watched episode 1 in this playlist, the episode 1 was all about how to move and manipulate darts. So the blocks in the book, I'm going to run through how they work in a sec anyway, but the blocks in the book are a miniature scale that I'll be demonstrating with today. So just to show you how it works, I'm going to keep an eye on comments and things here as well, fingers crossed. Let's see how this works. Will that work there? No. Okay. Let me just go back there 1 sec. Let me just see. I'd love to be able to see your comments, but it's always a tricky one to actually be able to see them when it's live. So if there are questions, please pop them over and I'll try my best to reply. Okay, so just to run through a little bit more as well, in the back of the book you have a set of full scale blocks in here. Now these blocks are the ones that you would use to adapt to fit you and your unique self. So they are full scale. So what I've decided to do is during this playlist and this series of videos is to actually work with these miniature blocks, which I will show you now. Now these are available to buy. There should be a link, hopefully it's popping up, but I will also put that on the YouTube video and I will post in the comments now just the useful links for this video going forward. But I have a PDF starter pack. So it's a pack that you can actually download, print out as many times as you want. And in that pack you have notes on here, you have a sizing sheet to help you actually get your sizing right. Then we have an alteration sheet, which is really useful for when you're actually looking to alter your block then to fit you. So it's the checklist that I use when I go through when I'm teaching. There's neckline samples, so you can actually use those to get a good neckline. And then the important bits, which I love, are these miniature blocks. So you will see, this is the, what was that? Front skirt, you've got the front bodice, and they're all A4, so you can print these off as many times as you want. So you've got the back bodice, the back skirt, and the sleeve. So that is £9.99, and that means that you can then also watch this video back. You can use the blocks in that smaller scale, and you can actually have a go creating exactly what I'm doing using the small blocks. And then when you're ready, you can start doing that to your larger scale blocks when you feel confident with the process. So I'm going to pop these away. Now, what I'm also going to show you on here, if I can figure this all out again, I've got a couple of things to show you. This is the PDF blocks that I've just shown you here. So this is available online. I'm just going to share the links actually onto the Facebook post. So, oh, what am I doing? Let me just get these linked in. I've got them all ready. So I'm going to share these under the comments in the Facebook video that's going out. So you can see all the useful links for this video. Then I will also share those onto the YouTube video as well once it's all gone live. So that should give you an idea of what we actually have. So those of you that have actually got the blocks, be lovely to know how you're getting on and how you're finding it, because they are really, really useful too. So what I'm also going to talk about before we get going as well is you may or may not know that the online course is also now live. So the book came out a year and a half ago, and the book was near perfect. So when you write a book, you obviously write it, you perfect it, and then when it goes to print, then that's when it really comes to life. And the last year and a half, I've taught the book inside out in the courses that I'm running. And there are elements of it that I've perfected. There are things I wish I'd put in the book, especially including bust and bust darts. So the online course is pretty much the book perfected, which is a really nice thing about it. And it means that everything that I've put into practice with teaching is perfected in this online course, and it is available for £99, lifetime access. It can be gifted as well. So there is, if you've got any questions, you can contact me, but you can actually gift the course in time for Christmas. What you'd need to do though is, if you do gift the course, the recipient will know as soon as you purchase it. So instead, what we're saying to do to get around this little issue is, if you do choose to gift the course, you can put your email address as the purchaser in the purchasing and the recipient box. And when we can see it's a gift, I'll contact you personally and we can edit those details for you. So then the recipient will not know and won't have an email notification. So the online course is here. I'm going to play the marketing video just because you can't see from this video because I'm doing a landscape one. But the reason why the online course is so perfect at the moment as well is because I'm currently 8 months pregnant. This is why I'm demonstrating this dress today to you as well. So the in-person courses won't actually be running for some time yet, until probably towards the end of next year. So the online course is the best way to be handheld throughout the entire book. So what you'll see from the marketing video is the professionalism and the way it's all been filmed, which I'm super, super proud of, and is every single part of the book explained slowly and clearly. Then these videos then are there to help you and to top up really your knowledge and take it further. So I'm going to just play this video now. I'm hoping it's going to work with the sound as well. So I'm going to go back to the main screen. There is something magical about making your own clothes. From the meditative process of sewing to the reward of creating a bespoke wardrobe that fits you and your style perfectly. It is a real privilege to be able to share my wealth of knowledge and experience through teaching to other people. My name is Helen Rhiannon. I am a bridal wear designer, an author, and a sewing expert based in South Wales. As well as being a bespoke designer, I have taught people of all ages how to make their own garments, from secondary school to further and higher education and beyond. In 2010, I set up the All Sewn Up Wales workshops, where I help teach people of all ages around the world how to develop their skills. In 2023, I combined my two passions, dressmaking and teaching, to publish my second best-selling book with Search Press, Dressmaking: The Easy Guide, which teaches students how to work like a designer, how to make a calico toile to perfect the fit, and how to pattern cut their own wardrobe. On this course, we bring the book to life as I guide you through the steps required to create dresses and separates. I'll be sharing my expert hints and tips along the way. We'll work together through the process from start to finish. You will learn how to pattern cut your own designs,
how to perfect the fit, and then you'll learn how to draft sleeves, necklines and skirts to be able to mix and match and create over 80 variations. I would love you to join me on this course and start your own dressmaking journey, developing skills that will enrich your own life and wardrobe for many years to come.
Okay, so I'm back, so I'm hoping you can hear me now. So that is the marketing video for the online course. So hopefully you'll get an idea of just the quality of the recording and the fact that you'll be able to see everything just filmed in detail in a really nice manner. So it's all just cool and calm, and it's like I'm in your sewing room with you. The only thing that I don't do is physically fit you, but there are lots and lots and lots of lovely groups forming around the UK and the world who are also now helping each other with the fit. So if it's something that puts you off from the process, if you have a look at my website, there is a section called groups, but you'll also see the Facebook group on there. So if you join the Facebook group, it's a massive support for anybody with a book, where you can ask questions online, you can post photographs, and also then you might be lucky to find someone near you that will also partner up with you and help you with your fit. You could also attend a sewing class and you could take the book along. You can ask someone, the tutor, would they be happy to actually help fit something to you? And if they are a good enough dressmaker, they should be happy enough to take that on and just help you with that little bit. So fingers crossed, it shouldn't put anyone off, because the end process, the end goal is just a whole wardrobe that fits you, and it's a really rewarding process. So any information, well, it's all there, it's all on my website as well, alsewinupwales.co.uk. And any questions you've got, just get in touch. Okay, so what I'm going to show you next is just a quick split screen before we get going. Where are we? I have to remember what I'm doing here now. So we're going to click on this one, click on me. So YouTube, so this is actually going out live to YouTube as well. So you can actually see the playlist on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe if you're watching through Facebook. You can then go onto YouTube and you can actually then subscribe, and it will tell you when there are new videos. Everything's in order on YouTube, so it's a much easier platform to actually watch these videos, because they will be in a playlist and they're very easy to find and they'll play in order. So subscribe to YouTube, it's all there. Okay, and what else? I think that was it. I think I'm going to get cracking now, which is quite exciting. So I'm just going to show you for a minute. So I'm going to keep the split screen for a sec. And what I'm going to do is just show you, or just hopefully get this camera set up on this one. I knew I'd do that wrong. Okay. So let me just take that off for a sec. Let me go back to that one solo. No, I want that one and then that one. Okay, so I just need to make sure, because this was what I was trying to do earlier, and I actually need to flick the camera over. So hang on, let me take it off that before I make you all dizzy. No, wrong one. So let me just, hopefully don't disconnect these, whatever I do. This is the beauty of being fully prepared, which I thought I was. Right, let's flick that round. Okay. I just do that, and I'm hoping now that we'll actually be able to see everything. So if I go back to this screen, you'll now be able to see what I have in front of me. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit as well. There we go, and we're just going to make sure that everything is in the right place. Hopefully I don't have the camera in front of me as well. Okay, so we are good to go. So what I have here are the front and back bodices. Now, as I said, these are the small versions. These are the versions that you actually would have in the back of the book in a much larger scale. So once you work through the book and you get your sizing right and you perfect all of the fit, and that could be your gaping armhole, gaping front, perfecting the actual shape of the armhole, the bust starts being in the right place, being on the apex, making sure that they are, say, you know, in the right position for your unique bust. There's so many elements to this that you would just perfect to get right, and then it's just fun. So if you imagine these are your blocks. Now, what we're looking at today, I'm just going to show you very quickly the end result. So you should have seen this picture anyway. So this is me in the dress that I have on now. So this is to accommodate a growing bump, which is all very exciting. But obviously I still want to look nice. I still, you know, I do the mum run. I have a little boy who is amazing. But obviously the school run involves comfortable clothes, you know, kind of stretched jeans for maternity and stretch tops. And it's really nice to still be able to feel lovely in something. So we actually created, I created this dress for the online course just to show you how to take the blocks further. Now there is a video which I've done, which is actually on YouTube and on Facebook. Now I think, if I can remember it is, I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to show you a little clip of it and you can find that on YouTube. And this is actually the process of me making the dress. So if you do want to look back and have a little idea of how the dress is put together, you can look at it. And I will just pull that up really, really quick, but I'll turn it off after about 30 seconds. Okay, so I'm just going to go back off here for a sec and back onto this one and just play this for about 30 seconds so you can see the video, and this might help you see how I've created the whole dress. I needed to make a dress for the online course to show how you can take your ideas further. The dress needed to incorporate pockets, piping, collars, embroidery and buttons. I decided to use a pattern I'd made a top in and to extend it into a dress. So I cut it out in this beautiful stretch denim from Higgs & Higgs, which is really soft to wear. I then had to use a sleeve pattern from a previous dress that I'd made, and then decided to create some pockets as well. So I pattern cut a quick patch pocket for each side of the dress. Okay, so I've just given you a little hint of what you can watch, and that will allow you just to be able to see the process of the embroidery, which is on the collar here, which you can see, how I created the collar, but I'm going to do the patterns in detail now, but you will be able to see a little bit more about, you know, the piping on the pockets and just the process coming together. So there's plenty there to keep you inspired, hopefully. So what we need to do first, when we're actually going to look at creating your loose fitting block, is we need to start with your front bodice. So I'm just going to keep these on both for a sec. So this is your front one here, and then this is your back one. So we don't need the back one for a minute. I'm going to do a full screen on here for this next part of the demo, okay? So this is the front bodice. Now on the blocks, you will find that there's a rather large dart on the shoulder, and there is a smaller dart then on the waist here. Now the reason this is because this actually allows everything to match up with your skirt. So I'm just going to very quickly cut out the skirt block, which you can see how that joins together. Now the ones I've got are ever so slightly bigger than in the pack, just so I've tried to make them as big as possible to demonstrate. So I've chopped the bottom of the skirt off, but you will see how this works now. There's no seam allowance on the blocks in the book, so everything is drafted without seam allowance until you're ready to add it on. Now what you'll see is when I actually attach these two together at the waist, you can now see that that dart should match as a diamond dart at the waist. So we've got quite a large dart up here on the top, and what we want to do is actually get rid of that dart because we don't want to have a dart on the dress that I have on at the moment. The whole point of this dress that I'm wearing is there are no darts, and the fullness has been moved from the shoulder, and it is actually making the fullness appear at the bottom half of the pattern. So this has been done in episode 1, which is all about dart manipulation, and you'll see how to actually move that dart. So what I'm going to do is just do it very quickly, still explain what I'm doing as I go through, but if you want to look in more detail, the episode 1 will show this very clearly for you. So I'm finding the apex of the bust, which is right on the bust line. A little reminder, if you have darts, they tend to finish 2 centimetres either side of the bust point. And that is so that you don't have Madonna boobs. You don't have a pointy bust. So what we need to do is just redraw them back to their full position, which is here. So I'm just going to draw the whole of this shoulder dart in. I'm using a pen just so it's clear for you to see. Okay, and what I'd like to do now is I would like to move that large dart into this existing waist dart down here. So I'm going to draw with a different colour pen so it actually helps you from the apex, and I would like my new dart to be where that red line is running through there. So what you then do is you cut where you want that new dart to go. So I cut right up to the apex. See, I've just done that. And then what I'm going to do is on the dart that I have redrawn in the blue pen all the way down, I'm just going to fold that dart closed. So by placing the blue line on top of the other blue line, everything should sit nice and flat because I've gone to the apex. And what you'll see is that that has now opened up a much bigger dart down here. So I'm just going to tape this top part shut. So this has now removed the shoulder dart. So you now no longer have this shoulder dart up here. And it means instead, your dart is actually, if I draw it in red, your dart is actually coming from here. So once you've perfected the fit of your bust, what you will have is whenever you move your actual darts, you'll still have the fit all the way around the bust and the armhole fitting you really well. So you won't have gaping armholes, you won't have any gaping anywhere else on the actual garment. So when you move your darts, all of that works really well for actually positioning. So if you were going to do a loose fitting top, with this you could just extend the top however much you want it, and you could either sew a little part of that dart, so you can actually sew the dart closed, which will give you that 3D fit, or you actually use now this fullness here to your advantage to make a loose fitting top. And this is what we're going to do next. So I've got a piece of paper here, and what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to trace this off, and I'm going to work out how long I want this pattern to be. And we're going to trace off what we've now created up here and then add some more adaptations to the front. So I'm going to place this just so you can see it better. I think I'll keep it on the actual bit of paper here. I'm going to line it up on the edge, and I'm just going to pop a pin in to hold it in place. Now you can either place this underneath, or you can place this on top and trace around like I'm doing. But if you are going to do, or say whichever way, just make sure you pin everything in place. Now again, I'm using pen just so that you can see how it works, but please don't use pen on your patterns. You will find it a lot easier to actually use your, oh, sorry, I'm just looking at that flickering for a minute. Yeah, use a pencil. Now I might, because it's flickering, I'm going to see, because if that's going to annoy, right, bear with me, I'm just going to see if I can turn something off and see what that light is. Hang on a sec. So bear with me. Let's see if that is any better. Still got a little of a flicker. Right, hang on, I'm going to do a swap. Sorry, folks. Let's try and get rid of that flicker. Still a little bit of a flicker. I'm afraid we're going to have to go with that. I don't actually know what is causing that now, because I can't actually turn any more lights off. I'm worried it's going to get too dark. So let me try one last thing. Hang on. Okay, so hopefully there is no flicker now, and I'm hoping you can still see. So all this beautiful light I have in the studio is not helping. Never mind. Okay, so hopefully that stopped. Brilliant. Right, so what we're going to do is we are now going to extend this what we have, bodice. This is currently the waistline, and we want this to actually extend down as long as you want it to be. So I was saying about not using a pen on your actual patterns because you do want to be able to rub things out. So I'm just going to draw down with a grey line. So I'm extending the centre front all the way down. Now what you'll find on the side is, on my blocks in particular for me, is I've got quite a curve because I've got smaller waist usually, and I've got quite a large pair of hips. So what I do have is a bit more of a curve here. Now it's up to you how you actually work this through, but you can actually position your skirt block alongside to kind of follow the natural line of you here. What you don't want to do is take this too straight down here and to make this too narrow for your hips, especially if you want that lovely loose fit. So imagine that you have your skirt block that's perfected. You might find that that line might end up being a little bit more pronounced like that. So if you want to keep the shape of the waist, which is something that I did on my one, is you can actually then position the side seams together. And I'm just going to do a series of dashes alongside just to see how that all works. Okay, so I'm just going to flick back to myself on here as well. So this is something to bear in mind with your pattern cutting, is you make the rules. So you don't have to actually think about you know, having to stick with an A line being dead straight all the way down there. Now for me personally, if I did a straight line from under the arm all the way to the hips, then personally I would look absolutely huge, because I said I've got hips and therefore my shape very much goes like this. So what was key for me with this top is to actually still keep the shaping of the waist and to have that curve that runs in and then flares out. So I hope that makes sense to you. Now I'm going to go back to this one. What you can also do, and it's something I factored in for mine because obviously I have a bump, what I also decided to do is to add a little bit more in to the centre front. So not by adding it at the neckline, because otherwise it's going to make my neckline bigger. What I decided to do was to flare it out at the bottom as well. So I gave myself a little bit more room just across the front there. Then what we need to do is just work out the length, so how long you actually want this to be. So for the sake of the pattern cutting with a sample, I think we're going to look at extending this by 14 centimetres, because I think, or what can I see on screen? We'll do it a little bit less, just so we can fit everything on. I'll do it this way. So you can make this a short top by making it shorter here, or as you can see, if you go longer, then this is what makes your dress. So actually, if we put it on this side angle, then I can make it as long as possible. So I'm going to make it down to here, and whatever that measurement is, I've chosen, bear in mind it's small scale, 16 centimetres. I think I'm going to make sure that I extend 16 from the waist the whole way around, and this will give you that lovely equal extension on your pattern. Whereas if you just freestyle, then you might find that you'll be too long in certain areas. So I'm doing this. Okay, so I'm going to join up this section here. So I'm actually going to fill this little gap in. Move it up a little bit. Fill these like dashes in so you can see how they work. And then I'm just going to turn it upside down. So I'm going, because I want a slight gentle curve, I'm still going to use the Pattern Master just to keep that curve, because you don't want it all being dead straight lines. But what you do want on the centre front, so this is the bottom of your dress, you need to make sure that that is a right angle. So using your Pattern Master, you will actually have a 90-degree line that runs down here, which is 90 degrees to this part. So you're actually lining up this section right on the corner here, which hopefully you can see, where it's 90 degrees here and here, and you place that onto the bottom there, and you make sure that that is a right angle, not for the whole thing, but just enough so that when you actually get to that centre front, it continues smoothly rather than going into a point of anything. So this now is a pattern that you can actually work with. So I'm going to take off the original pieces here. Now there's nothing else we need to mark on here because this particular dress is just loose fitting. Oh, what I do need to do though, obviously, is trace around the top bit, which I didn't do. So just before I take this off, I need to just mark the armhole around here and the shoulder, which I didn't trace off. And then the neckline, so it's going to come around here. So when you do remove this, I'll fill these in so you can see the whole shape of this coming together. And I'm going to draw the armhole in so again it's nice and clear for you to see. So you'll see with the pattern master, it's just a case of moving it to work with a curve that you have. And that is the beauty of the pattern master. Okay, so this is your pattern. Again, just to fit it all on, I'll keep it this way actually. Now I'm going to draw in the grain line. So the grain line on here is still on the front. So this is actually cut on the fold. So I'm going to place the pattern master with a straight line along the centre front here, and I'm going to draw with a nice clean red pen the symbol for cutting on the fold, which is a straight line with an arrow pointing to the centre front line. So I'm going to write on here centre front, cut on fold. What you would then also do here, you would write front dress, I'm going to call this today. You would then also say how many you need to cut. So for this you would cut 1, but in brackets on the fold, so you don't cut up here. And currently there's no seam allowance, so what I am going to do before I do anything else on here is add it would be in full life a 1 centimetre seam allowance. So whatever you add on, write that down. Now for the sake of this sample, I'm just going to say 0.5 centimetre seam allowance because that's all I'm going to add on at the moment. But that information is there, your grain line's there, and I'm just going to very quickly go around and add this, which in full scale would be more like your 1 centimetre seam allowance. Just add that in, and then always make sure that you've actually drawn your seam allowance in. What I say to a lot of people on courses is if you leave it and you forget to actually label that your seam allowance is there, it's very easy to pick this up a couple of months later and then forget whether this seam allowance is included or not, and then you start adding it or cutting it away by mistake. So make sure you label whether your seam allowance is included in your pattern, whether it's drawn in or not. That's the key thing. So I'm just going to just do that. And if you add it on the front on this one, then you just need to remember to do the same on the back. I'm going to keep going around here. So what you now have is your front dress. This is all ready. Now we'll come back onto the neckline once I've done the back, but for now I'll just do that part and the front is ready. So you will find now that this will fit lovely around your bust, lovely around your armhole once you've perfected that fit. You still have an element of shape here. Unless you want to have it really, really loose, then by all means just do a nice straight line and that will give you a lovely, you know, big baggier piece to wear. That's my personal preference, to keep the shape in. Okay, so now we're going to go onto the back piece. So we'll put that to one side for now. And what I have here is the back bodice. So this now is the piece we're going to work on the back. So everything we do on this piece, we'll make sure that it still matches the front, because we will need to be joining the side seams and the shoulder seams. Now this is a nice little trick to show you. What I'm actually going to do, this dart here is coming into the waist. If I were to match up the skirt piece, again, I haven't cut this one out, so bear with me. I'm just going to cut this out quickly so you can see. If you go with the blocks that are in the book and you choose to have something that's fitted, therefore you need to sew your darts, you will always then have these darts from the waist. So going down to the hip and just going up to roughly where the bust point is. So what you have, and I move this up, you place your bodice and your skirt together, and you will see, as long as I cut this little bit off here, you will see that they match up exactly on the waist. So you've got that diamond dart there again. What we need to do with this is you can either leave the dart in, and it means that that dart will give you that shaping on the back of your dress. If, like me, sometimes you think, let's be a bit quicker with this and let's not have any darts whatsoever, we can do a little cheeky hack, which is always good. Now, I'm actually going to pin these together, or tape them together for a sec. Okay. And I'm just going to put a little bit of tape across there. So bear in mind there would be no seam allowance on your block, so these are butted up right up next to each other there. Now you have a straightish seam running all the way down the back, and then you've got your darts, and then when your darts are sewn, that's then what's going to make all of this pinch in to give you that shaping on the waist. There's no reason why you can't actually think, well, I don't want to sew this dart. Instead, I'm just going to reshape the centre back seam. So what we're going to do is measure exactly how much that dart is. Now on small scale, it is 2 centimetres wide. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to the centre back, and I'm actually going to measure 2 centimetres in from the centre back seam. And we're also going to see then where the top of the dart finishes, which is on that bust line, but the bottom of the dart finishes just above the hip line. So I'm actually going to just mark there as well. And what you can do, it may seem really, really simple, but you actually just pretty much redraw the dart. I'm going to do this in pencil for a sec. Redraw the dart in like this. Now it's going to look a little bit extreme. Okay, so you can see it suddenly makes quite a severe shape here. Let's move that out of the way. But you can see the idea of this. Okay, so I think what I did on mine, I didn't want it too figure hugging again because of the style of the dress. I wanted it loose, but I still wanted to have some shape on them. So what I decided to do was to not actually take the full width of the dart. I think I just did a little bit less from there. So about 2/3 of the dart. And I'm just going to turn this around because it's easier for me to draw in. And then I just decided to shape in from the back here, just to give it a little bit of shape down into that waist. And this is the part now that I'm actually going to get rid of. So that pretty much is your dart. And what you would then do is, this dart has actually disappeared now. And then because the centre back seam isn't as straight, when you sew those 2 seams together with that curve in, that will still give you that lovely curve in the centre of your back. So you can soften this, make sure it's not too angled, and just have a nice gentle curve in there. Now we're going to go back onto the paper because we still need to adapt this block to make it into that A-line shape. So I'm going to place it on top here so that you can see. Again, we'll do it on the sides, you can see everything on there. I'm going to pin it all in place. And then I'm going to draw around. So I'm going to come back to this bit in a sec, but I'm just going to just trace around so we can see the shape of this underneath here. Doing it in pencil, although I know this armhole is going to stay, so I'm going to actually do the armhole in pen. And the top part here, because the shoulder is not changing. And then what I'm going to do is just draw this part in here. Now I'm going to flick this underneath so you'll be able to actually see, because I want to copy this new line that I've done here. So I'm going to pop this underneath the paper, which hopefully you can still see. See from there, and I'll just again just pin it back in place. And then what I'm going to do is from here, where the centre back line is, join that, and then I'm just going to follow the line where I took out that dart, and you'll see it much clearer on here then as to how that actually works. And again, as I've said, make sure it's not a point. And again, you don't want to give yourself a humpback on the back at all, so if you need to soften that and just graduate it up, then what you'll now see is you have a lovely shape there that when these are sewn together will give you that little nip into the back without having to worry about sewing darts. So this is where we can actually bring the front one back into play. I'm just going to do the little universal mark for centre back, which is 3 notches. You know that's the back. You can also mark in, before you remove your initial pattern, your grain line. So you know your grain line is there. We've got the neckline, the armhole, and the side seams all marked in for a sec. So we'll take this off. We'll remove this, and now we want to make sure that this matches up to the front. So this is where you want to check the length. So where you've got your side seam here, you can either measure with a tape measure and see what that finished one is, but it should be 16 centimetres longer than where your waist was, or you can actually place it either underneath or on top. And I'm just going to mark just where that is here. Now something you can also consider is we flared this out, okay, on here. So you want to do similar onto the back as well. So you can kind of gauge, again, just by placing it on top, you can match your shoulders and you can actually flare out however much you want it to go. And what I'm going to do here is I'm still going to keep this part fitting at the waist, because again, I want to keep that little bit of a waist. And then I'm just going to flare it out as much as it naturally can go, which is about there. So I might just mark in the waistline just with my pencil, because then I can measure that consistent length that we add in, which was 16. And I'm going to just mark in 16 centimetres in length so that we know it will be the same length added on that I've added on the front. Now with the centre back, because you're cutting it in two, you can flare this out a little bit if you want. So you'll see that that bit is actually coming out here. So you can If you're happy with that, that's great, but you can also flare that a little bit more. So then I'm going to just match up this bottom bit. Again, where you've got like your centre back, ideally you want that to be a nice right angle so that you don't have a point. And again, on your side seams, you can match all of this up afterwards as well. So what you'll now see is you have your shoulders, your neckline, your armhole. You've got the piece here that still gives you a bit of shape in the side seam and the centre back, and you've got that flare on there as well. And you should then be able to make sure you add seam allowance and it all should check together. So I'm going to go round and just add my 0.5 centimetre seam allowance onto this, the whole way around. I just need to add a little bit more paper onto this for where I'm missing the paper. But I'm going to run down. You just want it all to be smooth. You don't want any crazy angles because your body is smooth. We have gentle curves. We don't have points. We don't have angles unless you want it to be a design feature. So you are in charge of your own wardrobe. But ideally, soft and fluid is the way to go. So I'm going to just add this bit in. Again, make sure your seam allowance is consistent. When you're dressmaking, whatever seam allowance you add on, make sure you are as accurate as you can be on your pattern pieces, and make sure that when you're sewing, you are sewing the exact seam allowance that you've drawn onto your patterns. So this now is your back. You should find that these side seams will match up. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to cut these out so you can see, and we can actually match up the pattern pieces to check that everything fits. Now, I haven't added onto this neckline. I'm just going to add this on quick. This is where things can go wrong. If you haven't added it on, you very quickly see how a pattern can go wrong. So you do need to check everything over. Now I've left the neckline on this quite high because I'm just going to show you really quickly how I drafted the collar and then the pockets. Really, really simple. It's a really fun way of seeing how you can make your block a totally, totally different style but still fit you in all the places where you need it to fit. So making looser fitted clothes doesn't mean it needs to drown you and make you look 4 sizes bigger. If it fits well, you'll find that it would be much more flattering. Okay, so this is your front piece. I'm just going to do the same on the back. And again, you can make this up. If you're doing this in miniature scale, you can make this up and just kind of see the proportions, because it's still better than, you know, seeing something small than not at all. Now, just where I've lost this little bit here, I'm just going to add a bit on. Just so that I don't lose any of my proportions. And then all the way down there. And I'm going to show you how to make sure that you match your pattern so that you've got half a chance of it actually working and fitting before you cut into your lovely fabric. So when you have these ready, one last bit to cut off here actually. And get yourself a good pair of paper scissors. It's amazing how a good pair of paper scissors helps you be really accurate as well. So what you now have, if I put them alongside here, you have your front and you have your back. So we're going to label the back while we're here. So we're going to label it back, dress. You are going to cut 2, and in brackets, a pair. So you need to have a left and a right. And then we'll also write down what seam allowance we put on there. Now these are the checks you can do. You can place your, again, sorry, I do it this way. You can place your seam allowances on top of each other and just see that everything fits in one go. So you can pin it together if you prefer. You can also mark some notches if you're going to use a slippery fabric. I would recommend maybe where your waist was, you can just do a balance mark on one of the pattern pieces, then place the second pattern piece over the top, hold it firmly in place and allow it to pivot round, and then match up where that little balance point was, which then gives you notches. And then just check that this also matches on the bottom. You can just see off that bit of camera. So that helps you then actually make sure that this is all going to fit on the side seam. The other ones to check are your shoulders. So you want to make sure that your shoulders match up. So you place your shoulder seams together, and that should give you your lovely consistent neckline, but also it should give you this lovely shape around the armhole. Now, what I haven't marked on here is a single notch for the front armhole and a double notch for the back. And that will help you get your sleeve in the right way. So this now is how I've created the dress that I have on. So I'm just going to go back to the split screen and I'm just going to have a little quick look, hopefully see if anybody, I don't think there's any other comments. Well, I can't see them anyway. So if you are commenting, I might have to look at them afterwards because I can't actually see them. Right, so let me just have a little tidy for these. The next thing I'm going to show you really quickly is how then to create the sleeve and a few little helping tips on that part. And I'll show you really quickly then how to actually do the collar as well. Now this is all in the book, so it's all simple in the book. I feel really in the dark now. Move this out of the way. So what I need is the sleeve pattern. So I'm going to run through all of this now. So like I said, all of this is actually in the book. So, and also the online course. And the online course explains this, like I said, really clearly, really simple. So what we have is when you have your front and back ready here, this looks good for an armhole. So it should always be a little bit straighter on the back there, and it should be slightly more curved and sit lower on the front. And that is just to actually fit the style of the armhole. Your arms go forward, not backwards. So therefore the more pronounced curve is always on the front. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go back to this one, keep that solo, here we go. And I know it's really small scale, but just a really, really quick little helping hand if you are at that point in the book. You would measure the armhole that you've perfected for your personal fitted block. Once you've done all the adjustments that are recommended in the book, but again, the online course goes into much more detail about the armhole, you can actually measure the finished stitching line, okay, which is around here. So not your seam allowances. You don't include those. You're not measuring the actual edge. You're measuring on the stitch line itself. You put your tape measure on the side and you actually measure with your tape measure upright, and you write down that exact measurement, which is going to there, not the edge of the paper. You do the same on the front and you make a note on both of those. Write them on your pattern. Then you go into the book, and I will show you where it is in the book. So where you have your sleeves. Now this is where, if I were to rewrite the book, I would have put this further back. So the actual chart for picking your sleeve is a bit early on. It's page 82. And what you would do, you'd measure that armhole. You'd have to add wearing ease on, so you make sure your armhole has got a little bit extra in so it's not really stuck to your arm. And then whatever that measurement is, plus your 2 centimetres ease, You then pick the nearest size to that, go up rather than down, and then you go back into the set of blocks in the back of the book and you trace off the block that's best fitting your toile. Okay, that's what you do. So you will then have your sleeve like this. So I can move these out of the way. I am going to just cut this out roughly. I might add seam allowance on it now actually, because this part it's not as, I say not as important, but I think the main bodice bit is the bit I really wanted to demonstrate with you all today. So I'm just going to go the back here. And again, remember to add whatever seam allowance you've added the rest of the pattern. Keep it consistent. But what I do tend to do, I do tend to draft the sleeve and then add the seam allowance afterwards. So we'll just see now. I haven't quite decided what I was going to do with this. So I'm going to add it on just in case. So in the book it may say use your blocks without seam allowance, but if you have created your blocks, then your seam allowance is already on it, which is absolutely fine. As long as you know if it's there or if it isn't and needs to be added, that's all that matters. Okay, so I'm going to cut this out with the seam allowance on for the sake of the demo. And the beauty of this with the sleeve as well is you can do this to any pattern. So one of the future videos I'm going to do is going to show you how to actually adapt commercial patterns using your blocks. Whether that will come before Christmas or whether it will be after Christmas, I don't know. I'm going to see if I can squeeze another one in before Christmas, just because after Christmas I'm going to be out of action for a little while. So perhaps I can get that one in to give you all something to do until I come back. Something to practice on in the new year. Okay, so you have your sleeve. What you would need to do is check, and I'm going to go back to, again, just the split one. So what you would need to do, I'm going to stand up here so you can see, like this one that I have with the sleeves, you can actually measure from the arm, so right on like the edge of the arm, and you can choose how long you want your sleeve to be. Now that could be that you measure something that's in your wardrobe already, or it could be that you are just guessing, but sleeves can be difficult to get right. So the more you can measure beforehand, the better. So once you've measured from your shoulder and how long you want it to be, that is your measurement that actually comes down right down here, down the center. So I'm just going to do, that's your grain line. So that is nice and straight on your block. And then you can measure that measurement. So again, I'm going to call that 18 here. Okay, so I'm going to just do a little mark where I want the length to be. And then because your grain line on your blocks is dead straight, again, remember the 90 degrees that I talked about that you can see, or I don't know if you can see in the camera here, put my hand underneath, you've got your 90 degree line. I would place the 90 degree line actually on the grain line, and then that will allow you to do a nice straight line across the bottom of the pattern. And that should hopefully mean that that's quite level. But before you don't assume everything, before you cut it, you can also check both sides to make sure that it is level. Now, whether you add seam allowance on or not, I'm going to add it onto this one for now. You can then cut off whatever you don't want. Okay, so that's the part of the sleeve that we don't need. So you've just worked out how long you want your sleeve to be, which is great. And then the next thing to do is to actually work out your bicep measurement, which is across here. So you can put the tape measure around your arm. So what you're looking at is this part of your arm, okay? So you can actually measure right around your bicep, and whatever that measurement is, place your tape measure from the point to the other point. And if that is your bicep measurement or more, that's brilliant, because that is going to fit your arm. If you find that that measurement is too small, then this is where you need to add into your sleeve by either doing a bicep adjustment, which is in the book and on the online course, or you can actually slash and spread the pattern, which I'll show you next. But another important one to do is when you've got the length of your sleeve and where you want the sleeve to finish in your arm, you can actually measure how much. So like on this piece, if I was copying this, I would measure the exact measurement of that sleeve, and that is what you then transfer to the pattern at the base along here. So if you're going to slash and spread, I'm going to go back to this one for a sec. If you slash and spread this pattern to create like the sleeve I've got in the book, you've got two options. You draw some lovely vertical lines down here. I'm just going to show you. So you just do a couple of vertical lines. Again, this is all in the book. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this for a minute. They don't need to be the same distance apart, as long as they're all spread amongst the whole of the sleeve. You would then cut up. You can either just leave them hinged at the top, which I will do for the sake of today. Now bear in mind the seam allowance is on this sleeve. Okay, and what you can then do is actually spread this pattern out. And you know the measurements we took from the bicep, which is there to there, then you would find by slashing and spreading, you'll give yourself a little bit more room. So that might be an answer. And also then you want to measure how much you spread this out for the style. Now, before I do how I did this dress, which has got a little bit of a puff, I'm just going to do a little horizontal line across here. Oops. Because what I'm then going to do is just separate each piece at the top. And this allows you then to actually add in not only fullness in the bottom, just line this up a little bit, not only fullness in the bottom of the sleeve here, but also you can add that lovely puff. So what you'll see on the dress I have on here, I have a nice puff section that actually is just on the top because it's in denim. It's given it a nice little bit of shape on here. So I actually divided it equally along the top and then also on this bottom bit here as well. So what you would do for that, I'll show you very quickly. You have your paper. This is where the dot and cross becomes really useful. Using those dots and crosses on the paper. You then line these up here. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to go back onto this screen actually so you can see that bit better. And then you just pin this accordingly. So however much you want that. So it's all to do with your measurements across here and also how much fullness. Now it is very much a guessing game with sleeves. It's something where you just need to try it out and see if you like it being as full as it is on the shoulders, and if not, the next time you can actually make it a little bit less full. So it's just a case of you pinning all your pieces down and you adjust them as you want. So you're totally in charge of whether you have more volume in the top or more volume in the bottom or an equal amount throughout. So I'm just going to pin these on very quickly. And again, like I know I keep saying, but the book explains 4 different sleeves. So you've got your slightly flared sleeve, you've got a puff sleeve, a cap sleeve and a beautiful butterfly sleeve. So the book will explain all of that and the online course will bring it to life and allow you to see how it visually changes. So this now is your pattern. Now bearing in mind I had seam allowance on it, so I'm going to actually just draw around the outside here, knowing that there's seam allowance in there. Same down here. The online course is a lot slower than this. Not quite as fast and furious. And then you just join the lines. So you don't, again, want any strange angles. You want a nice gentle curve that comes all the way over the top of the sleeve. So you can just kind of fill in the gaps there. Make sure you keep your centre head notch, and you also want to mark that this is the back with 2 notches and this is the front with 1 notch. Now you can then take these pieces off, or you can leave them pinned on. So it's something where when you actually cut this out, you can go back to your pattern, and if you haven't liked how the sleeve looks on you, you can go back and you can rearrange these pieces that are pinned on. But I'll cut this just so you can see how that works. And if you think now, once you've done this sleeve, you can add this onto your block, whether you're using this pattern or a different pattern, it doesn't matter, because your armhole won't change once you've perfected it. So this is when the beauty of pattern really comes in, pattern cutting, so you really can start to mix and match all of the elements. So that now is your sleeve. So that will work for these pieces. What you'll find is that centre head notch, if I were to put these this way round, this would be the centre head notch matches there, the back matches the back, the front matches the front, and then you would actually gather this into fit. Now again, this is all explained in the book and in the online course, so I'm not going to do a physical demonstration of that today, it's just more about the actual pattern cutting. And so one last thing is just how I did the collar. So a really quick final thing to round up. Let's see if there's any more comments. Oh, so Amanda, you've just seen, so clever with that. Roz, hiya Roz, it does get easier. See, I don't get to see everyone's comments. I don't know why, it doesn't really show, doesn't show all the comments until after, which is a little bit annoying. So there's, yeah, it's only showing me 4, so I'm really sorry, I'll have to come back to those in a sec. Right, last little bit, when you do your neckline, you would need to actually draft your facing. So again, use the book to draft those, because you need to have the facings inside to give you a lovely, beautiful finish. So you would actually do that using the instructions in the book or the online course and actually get those drafted inside. But the collar, again, I get you to overlap ever so slightly on the shoulder. So I think it's by 2 centimetres in the book. So there's a slight overlap, and what you're placing together is the actual stitch lines on top of each other, and then you overlap them ever so slightly. And this allows the collar to just hug to your shoulder rather than sitting up. So when I show you that, I'm going to come back to this. So it's on about here. So this isn't actually sticking up, it just hugs your shoulder slightly. So it's a little bit less actually on this part. And then all you do, nice and simple, is just draft your collar. And you decide how you want it to look. And I'm going to show you the picture that I had within here, which is somewhere. Let me find it, because I'm going to just show you a few little snippets of this. Oh, I'm sure I added it in, but it looks like it's totally disappeared. Oh, never mind, that's gone. But you can watch that video, it's there anyway. But you just decide how long you want the actual collar piece to be onto your shoulder. So you would mark that. You would then also mark how low you want it to be. So if it's on your back, you can just mark the length. Again, on the front, I chose to do these where, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit so you can see this a bit better. So I chose to have them from the centre front, but just to come out ever so slightly, so you've got that little bit of a gap between here. So I actually went from the centre front, and the same on the back. I wanted a little bit of a gap there. I did it shorter on the back, longer on the front, and then you just draw your collar in as you want it, and it's something that you can just practice, see what it looks like on paper, put it around your neck, copy an existing one if you want. But if I draw it in pen, you'll be able to see a little bit more detail. The beauty of collars, you are totally in charge of how you want that shape to be. So you're drawing it onto your pattern pieces to see what it looks like. Then you trace off a brand new pattern piece onto paper. Now you can do, like I've said, absolutely any shape you want. So you could do a really crazy scalloped edge if you want. So you can really kind of give your shape in. It can be Peter Pan, which is super round. You can curve the corners. You can give yourself a scalloped edge, whatever you want to do, as long as it actually fits around the neckline and you've used your blocks to create that, you are totally in charge of your collar. So what you would then do, place a bit of paper on top, trace off your collar pattern, add your seam allowance, and then you've got that all ready. Okay, so it's really quite straightforward. So maybe just to finish this off, I will do that just to show you so you have a complete set of patterns. The only thing missing on here is the facing. Okay, but I'm not going to do that now because that'll be a little bit too long. So I always freestyle when I go around, when I'm tracing pieces off, and then join up all those dashes afterwards. That's moved a bit, let me just pin that back in. I'm also going to mark the shoulder to make sure that that makes it easier for you to actually see where that shoulder point is. You know that you have your centre front, so you can mark with a CF. Centre back, put your 3 notches in, so you know that's there. Unpin it, add your seam allowance, which I'll do super quick. Cut it out and you'll be able to see a complete pattern. So when you know what you're doing, pattern cutting can be quite quick. When you're starting out, it does take time. Things do go wrong. That's normal. It's normal to practice sampling things, so get plenty of calico. Don't be afraid to just give it a go. Now again on this, I'm just going to check. Now I had the seam allowance actually in this. So again, always go back to your patterns, or did I have it there? So the seam allowance is on here. So if in doubt, go back to your original pattern. I'm going to cut this out. That is this dress. So you can all make this lovely dress now. I expect to see lots of photos of you all as well. So I'm just going to go back to this part for a sec so you can see how this works. I'm just going to put that. Okay, so that's how it was. So all we need in the day is just time. That's my nemesis at the moment, is the time to actually have fun and create all these pieces. Now I created this one in a denim, and it was from Higgs and Higgs, who are amazing, lovely Joe at Higgs and Higgs. And there's actually a 10% discount code to use. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but if you sign up to the newsletter or find on All Sewn Up Wales's post, there's a link to read the newsletter and it's in there. I can't quite remember what it is, I'm afraid, but the denim is gorgeous. Got a little bit of stretch in it as well. Let me slide that over so you can see. Okay, so that was the neckline. That's your pattern piece. You can also mark in your grain line. I think I've just done it a slight different angle there. You can also just say mark in grain line on here, so you know if you want it to be exactly on the centre front, especially if you've got a pattern, then use your front grain line as a guide. Okay, so that's your grain line. You would label this as your collar. You would need to cut 4. Okay, so you cut 4, which is in brackets 2 pairs. And you would also need to fuse 1 layer, possibly 2 layers, depending on your fabric. I'm going to just come back here. But it all depends really on how thick your fabric is. Now I think I always put interfacing on the top layer, especially because I knew I was doing the embroidery, which is actually on here. So that is your pattern, that's your dress. Let's zoom out a little bit again. Let's go the other way. Okay, so you have your front, you have your back, you have the sleeve which is flared, you have your collar piece, you just need your facings. So I'm just going to show you, before I go, come back to myself here. I've got some of the pictures that were in the video. So the video that I showed you really quickly, that's still on YouTube, you can see how it's all done. So I'm just going to flick through the photos. So this is what you can see within the actual video itself. This was the collar piece that I had. So I had an embroidery magazine and I had some of the transfer paper, so the iron-on transfer paper that you can then actually iron onto your fabric. You can draw onto it, stitch through it, and then, see like that, you can then actually stitch through it all and then you soak it off with water. So it's absolutely brilliant to do. So I really enjoy doing that. Then the pockets, I just decided to do some really simple patch pockets. I created my own piping because I didn't have any piping. So I just had what's called a rat's tail, which is like a very thin cord, which you can find, you know, bits cut out of clothing or leftover bits if you don't have it. But I just folded a bit of, what's it called? Some baby cord over the rat's tail and actually then stitched it down so it was like your piping. Then after I'd finished the embroidery, placed it onto the collar. You've got to cut right into that corner of the piping to allow it to curve around. And then that was how it was when it was all sewn. So it can take a little bit of going right into it. So if you do add piping, give yourself a bit of time to perfect it. And then place it onto your neckline. And how fabulous does that look? Buttons, if you want covered buttons, this is a really, really cool tool. I think it's a prim tool for covering buttons. And this is the best one I've had without going to like an industrial one. And you will need a hammer to really just make sure it grips onto everything. But the finished look is absolutely gorgeous. So the pattern hasn't changed there. All I've done is I've not sewn all the way up to the top of the neck. And I've just put some little loops in and some nice covered buttons. And that is the finished dress. You can see that's the back. That's the front, which I love. You can see the little bit of gathering on the shoulders. This was it then being photographed for the online course. You'll see me wearing it in that. And then this is a kind of recent photo with it, so you can see a little bit of shape in there. You can see how it all works. And that is the dress. So I'm just going to have a very quick look at comments. What have we got? Yeah, I'm going to have a little read of these afterwards, but I know lots of you are lovely and positive, which is brilliant. It's the first one I've done where I've actually demonstrated how to make something I've created. As I've said to you, there's lots more to come, but I also have, I'm 8 months pregnant, so there might be a little bit of a gap, but I am hoping and planning that I can still actually come out and continue to do these videos so it can just inspire you and help you. And it just means that it gives you the ideas of actually being able to create your own wardrobe. And over time, what I'm looking to do is to be able to just show you all different types of silhouettes so that you can really see how your blocks can develop into a really fabulous personalised wardrobe, which don't have to be figure hugging blocks, but again, I just go on tiptoes. I saw the cameras out, but it still fits lovely around here. This is the important thing. It's not gaping, even though it's a nice loose fitting dress. It's not really big. It's not drowning me, and that's the really important thing. So if I get a chance, the next video in this series will be me showing you how to use your blocks and how to actually pick the right sizing on commercial patterns and how to use your blocks to get a better fit on commercial. So bear with me. If I can do it, I will. But if you've got any questions, just post them either on YouTube or post them on the All Sewn Up Wales page. I will try and look back on them. But please, please, please bear in mind that we have the online course, as I said. So there is a link on the Facebook post. There will be a link on YouTube. The online course I'm super proud of, and I'm really, really confident that that online course will help whether you're a total beginner, whether you're more advanced, but to get to the point where your blocks work and fit you, and then you can do all this fun stuff. So consider it, maybe ask someone to gift it to you if you want for Christmas, and at least then you can have lots of fun creating your own wardrobe. Now, just a lasting note on this is this actual pattern block that I created for myself. I made a top and I added a butterfly collar to it, so I made it shorter than the dress, used the same bodice front and back, different sleeve, and I think I kept the neckline the same, and I also made a pinafore dress, so I just lowered the neckline, lowered the armholes, simple pinafore dress. So once you put the time in once, it makes everything a lot easier for that second time, then a third time when you start making your capsule wardrobe. So I hope you found it useful. I'm looking forward to seeing all your comments as well. Remember that also you have the PDF starter pack as well. So if you want to have a go in this smaller scale, it definitely helps, because it means you're not working at such a big scale where if things go wrong, you can get quite lost. So have a look at that. That's on my website under a PDF starter pack. There's a link on Facebook, there'll be a link on YouTube. It's a brilliant way to just print off as many copies as you want and have a play along with me when I do this series. So I really look forward to seeing you at the next one. Fingers crossed it will be before Christmas, and I'm hoping it will be how to use your commercial patterns, so to keep you all inspired and happy going forward. Okay, so sorry I haven't been able to answer any questions. Sorry it's so dark as well. What have I done now? Yeah, sorry it's so dark, because it's the flickering light definitely didn't work. So hopefully been able to see everything well. I'll have a look at why that happened for next time. But I really look forward to seeing you all on another one now in this series of Beyond the Blocks. So thank you for watching. So I'm going to put this over the top. Thank you ever so much, everybody, and you look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay, now I always have to remember how to end it, which I can never remember how. There we go.